Thank you for tuning in to the Black Money Tree Podcast, hosted by entrepreneur, investor, and philanthropist Jerome D. Love. We are committed to teaching you how to build wealth so that you can build your community. At the Black Money Tree, our goal is to empower wealth creation and create economic self-sufficiency in order to empower generations to come. Society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never enjoy. Powered by Wells Fargo Bank. Welcome to the Black Money Tree Podcast.
Welcome to the Black Money Tree Podcast, where we are empowering people to build wealth so they can build their communities. I'm excited about the Black Money Tree movement because I believe that if we as a Black community are going to build our community, it's going to be because we have strategic efforts that are targeted towards helping to build wealth within our communities. And a big key, a big part of that is building businesses, having real estate. So today we're going to enter into a conversation about one of, if not the biggest business in the Black community that many people overlook, and that's our HBCUs. But before we get into that, I do want to mention that Texas Black Expo is celebrating 20 years of service to the community this year. Our grand summer celebration will be May 18th through the 21st in Houston, Texas, with NBA legend Magic Johnson. So if you are a vendor, if you're not a vendor and you just want to come out and meet Magic or come to some of our business workshops and our seminars, we're going to teach you how to acquire businesses. We're going to have a franchising masterclass. We're going to have real estate development. Bring the kids out. It's going to be a family fun event, and it's taking place May 18th to the 21st in Houston. Go to texasblackexpo.com for more information, and to get your vendor booth, book.texasblackexpo.com/callback, and someone from our team will call you back to discuss your role in Texas Black Expo. So once again, today's conversation is going to revolve around entrepreneurship, business building, and education. And to help facilitate this conversation, we have one of the elite minds in our country, Dr. Lesia Crumpton Young, who serves as the president of Texas Southern University's, one of the nation's premier HBCUs. Welcome to the Black Money Tree Podcast, Dr. Young.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me to the Black Money Tree Podcast. I just love the title, Black Money Tree. It's exciting, and so I'm happy to be here today, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Well, we're so excited to have you. Now, we always start our conversations out kind of in a similar fashion. I want to know a little bit about you, how you grew up. Were your parents educators? You're a PhD. You're doing some amazing things. What did your parents do to groom you in such a fashion? And what did they teach you about wealth and money building and things of that nature?
Well, that's a wonderful question. So let me say, I'm a first generation college student. So what my mother did to make sure that I was successful in college was force me to do my homework each and every day as I was going through school in K through 12. I'm sure you may have had a mother similar,
yes,
and I'm sure your viewers do as well. So she instilled in me the importance of education, and my mother actually made for me the connection between knowledge being power and power helping to build wealth as a result of the knowledge. So for me, my path to what I was defining as a wonderful, prosperous career, it was through achieving education and completing my degrees. So I actually started planning that when I was in elementary school. I knew if I wanted to be wealthy, I needed to get a college education. And so I pursued a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD in engineering, where fortunately I was the first African-American female to earn a PhD in engineering at Texas A&M. I left there and decided to forego all of the wonderful fortunes associated with corporate America. And I decided to give my talent to higher education so that I could help generate that next generation of engineers and scholars and Black individuals who would become wealthy.
You know, it's interesting. You brought up my mom. My mom was an educator. She was a fourth grade teacher. And I remember I hated, we used to have these cards that she would have us do, like for the SAT prep, where you would fill them out and you would put the one card in and pull it up. And that was the way I spent my summers. Now, my dad, on the other hand, he had grew up on the farm all of his life. So he barely graduated high school, went to the military. So he was more working the fields. He was a farmer. And he was a big proponent in education. And he told me, son, go to college, get your education. But I personally feel that they didn't really connect the dots between education and wealth building from the perspective of, they made it almost as though you go to college and magically you're going to get money, you know? So he didn't understand. And his perspective was more, you need to go work for someone else to make money. So when I started my own business at 19 and wasn't using the education that he had worked so hard to pay for, he wasn't necessarily all that thrilled about it. So talk a little bit about that. I think sometimes people go to college assuming they get this degree and magically they're going to make money, but they kind of negate some of the fundamental disciplines and work ethic that's behind that. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I will say that there are two aspects to, creating wealth. The first is to generate income, and then the other is to invest it wisely and do things with that income that really allow it to grow exponentially. And so we try to teach our students both here at Texas Southern, because yes, you can have the opportunity to earn dollars as a result of getting a college degree and being placed in the career of your dreams. But if you spend everything you earn, then you aren't building wealth. And I think that's the point that you're alluding to. So what we try to do with our students is make sure, number one, we give them a great education. We prepare them to move into the workforce if they choose to do so, but we also prepare them to be entrepreneurs. And it sounds like at 19 you had an entrepreneurial spirit and you were ready to earn that, start building that wealth, and you took that type of path. So we try to educate our students to do both. Sometimes even myself, you mentioned that Magic Johnson was going to be the speaker at the Texas Business Expo, and you probably noticed that I smiled because I remember as a young professor, after I finished my degree, started teaching, I also was very interested in being an entrepreneur. So I started a spin out company. The very first conference that I went to was sponsored by Black Enterprise, and Magic Johnson was the speaker. And it's amazing what I learned in that 45 minutes. I learned that number one, you start your business with an exit plan. And so I actually ended up growing a business and I sold it just as he taught me in that first conference. So I think it's important for individuals to have that knowledge, gain that information. You can do it in a formal setting like our university, or you go to those professional development seminars in other areas to learn the key associated with building wealth.
No, I think that's so good. Magic Johnson, I've actually met him, I believe, second year that we did Black Expo, and he certainly had a significant role in really encouraging me with Black Expo. I was 26 years old. We had our first or second Black Expo, and I remember him just being so kind, and he was like, man, Black Expo is a great thing. I look forward to coming. And for me to have someone of his stature affirming what I was doing, it really encouraged me and made me want to continue on. So, but no, that's great. That's great. I didn't know you had that entrepreneurial gene and background in you. You mentioned me. I had the desire not to work for someone else. Everyone had taught me to get a good education, get a good job. And when I got my good job, which was an internship, I just said, I don't want to live like this. I was working from 7 to 7, no time for anything else. And I said, well, there has to be a greater way for me, because I also realized even if I was working all the time and making a bunch of money, if I had no time, how could I develop my children? How could I help my community? So for me, I figured there has to be another way to generate revenue that would also give me time and resources to be able to impact our communities. So we had one of your alum, Mr. Marcus Davis from the Breakfast Club, on the podcast. And he talked about how HBCUs are the biggest businesses in our communities, and most of us neglect them. And I will say this, I believe that when you build strong businesses, that they then support the community. One of the biggest supporters of Black Expo, the easiest, like when I started Black Expo, I'm calling all these companies, and most of the times you're preparing for the no and you're preparing to make your sales pitch. But whenever I call TSU, whenever I call PV, it's like it's ingrained in you guys that your role is to help to build the community. Y'all have always been on board. You guys have always been supportive of Black Expo. So talk a little bit about the significance of HBCUs in building and supporting Black communities, but not just Black communities, the community as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point that you make about our institutions have always been on board. And I will tell you, when I think about HBCUs, I think about one of the signs that I saw in the Black Lives Matter protests over the years. I saw a sign that said, Black lives have always mattered at HBCUs. And so that speaks to your point that yes, HBCUs have been pillars of their community for a very long time. That didn't just start when we had, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement or any other movement. HBCUs have been committed to transforming lives. That's how I describe it at Texas Southern very simply. I transform the lives of my students. I transform the lives of my alums, and I transform the lives of the individuals in the community where we serve. And we do that in a number of ways. We are a very big contributor. We have a large economic impact. The study shows that we have $500 million annually that economic impact in our community. So we're providing jobs, we're providing, we're purchasing items, we're also providing scholarships, we're doing a number of things. We're influencing the development of new businesses. We have an entrepreneurship center, the Gerald Smith Center for Entrepreneurship on our campus, that's also helping individuals who have entrepreneurial aspirations to be successful in the community, but then also teaching our students some of the important things that they need to know about being successful entrepreneurs as well. So we have always been committed. We've always been active, and we have made a significant economic impact in our communities.
So talk a little bit about HBCUs have been in the news lately, and really for the last year and a half with Deion Sanders and Jackson State and all the wonderful things that he's been doing. And of course, with Bethune-Cookman and Ed Reed. And I always say this, why you can't critique something that you're not supporting. And a lot of people want to criticize HBCUs, but they're not supporting HBCUs. And I tell people, as an organization, like a lot of people want to tell me as Black Expo what we're supposed to do. And then I say, hey, what, did you get a table or did you get a booth? No, well, at the end of the day, it takes resources to survive. And if you're not part of I guess the saying goes, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So talk a little bit about that and the need for resources and funding for HBCUs.
I think that is an excellent point that you make. One of the things that is critical, there's a study that was published by UNCF entitled Punching Above Your Weight. And it talks about all of the statistics associated with producing diverse talent in our country. And it says that we as HBCUs are producing the majority of the diverse talent in our country. Although we're very small, I'm very small compared to U of H, for example, or I'm small compared to Texas, small compared to the UT system, yet to produce a significant percentage of the diverse talent in our state. And so that shows that we're doing more with less. We are more successful in getting our students in and out successfully with fewer resources. That's something to be proud of, but that's not something that should be continued. We need to have the resources given to us financially by the state, by alums, by corporate partners, by philanthropic organizations. We need to get additional resources so that we can continue to do this great work of producing diverse talent.
So, do you think the onus is upon, and let me back a second. When we started Black Expo, one of the things that we always hear is about the need for us pooling our resources and keeping it in our community.
Mm.
During COVID, Texas Black Expo started a program called We All Eat. We were funded $12.6 million by Fort Bend County. We provided 715,000 meals, and that 12.6 million was split between roughly 33 restaurants in the Fort Bend area. So we were on the forefront. So the restaurants fed the people. So it was an economic stimulus for the restaurants. And what someone told me, and I began to realize, they said, well, we focus so much on keeping our money in our communities that we don't have any initiatives to get resources from other communities and bring them within our communities. Because that's in essence what other people are doing when they're setting up the nail shops and the corner stores in our neighborhoods. They're extracting the resources from our communities and then they take them back to their communities. So do you feel as though the onus is more on the state and other institutions to support our HBCUs or our communities, or is it more upon us to support our communities?
I mean, I think it's a hybrid. I think it's a combination of both. With us being a state institution, I think, yes, the state should fund us equitably. They should fund us the way they fund other state institutions. So I think that's part of it. I also think that we are producing great talent for corporate America. And I think we should have the corporate partnerships and the corporate support the same way that other institutions have as well. But then also we have an alumni base. And just like other institutions, and at other institutions, they're alumni. They do give back their talents and their treasures to the institution. And I think we should have that as well. We also have a faculty and staff campaign like other institutions where faculty and staff of the institution also give back to help support the institution. So I think it should be a combination of all individuals contributing to make sure we continue to grow and strengthen our HBCUs, because they have produced. It isn't that the HBCUs are asking for a handout. I mean, we have proven our return on the investment. We accomplished more with less. So therefore, for every dollar that our institution gets, for example, from the state, we provide a better return on that investment.
So I saw the interview with the gentleman from Bethune-Cookman, and he gave a stat, and I can't remember the number, but it was very low. I think it was like less than 1% of the alumni actually contributed back to, I believe it was Bethune-Cookman. I don't know if it was HBCUs in general. I know specifically, but some of the things, I've been to TSU's campus, I've been to Prairie View's campus, and maybe Texas is just a little bit different. It didn't seem to be in the condition that the way they described Bethune-Cookman. So are those numbers true for TSU? And what do you think we can and should do to get the giving up within the alumni?
Well, for us, those are not true numbers. I mean, our
Okay.
numbers are in the double digits in
Okay.
terms of percentage of alumni that contribute. Um, so, but they can always be better. What I say to my alums is, I'd like for you to give consistently to us. And, it can almost be that you pick an amount that you can afford. It's not about the amount as much as it's about the consistency. Select an amount you can afford and then have that be a recurring contribution. So it can recur each month or recur annually, but it's the making sure that we get the donations consistently that matter. So it's the recurring gifts that matter. Also, I think one of the things we have a strong alumni relations group. We have a strong national alumni association, but it's incumbent upon all of us to start to say, what more can we do? Who else can we ask to come and continue to participate in helping to provide resources for the university? So we can't stop there. I do think that there are some HBCUs. We have well over 100 HBCUs in our country. Each of them are funded differently. And so there, we also have to ask for equity across the nation. There are some states that fund their HBCUs very well. There are other states that do not. And so Bethune-Cookman may need some additional funding from their state. They're not a public institution, they're a private institution. We have a number of private HBCUs, and because they aren't getting the resources from the state, they also aren't getting the resources from corporations or getting resources from their alumni, they are having a difficult time providing state-of-the-art facilities.
Yeah.
And they have some issues associated with, deferred maintenance and other types of occurrences as it relates to their infrastructure that they simply have not been able to overcome some of those problems.
So, like I say, just for the record, TSU's campus is immaculate. I love going to TSU, the School of Business, state of the art. So for me, I knew that it wasn't. I went to the University of Texas at Austin. It was clear that it wasn't UT, but it wasn't what they were describing with Bethune-Cookman, if you will. So, but it's interesting. I didn't know. I assume there's some type of metric that determines the amount of funding that the state gives an institution. So how is that? You said you're state funded. How is that determination made of what resources go where? Is it based upon students? Is it based upon academics? Or how is that determined?
Well, our state has a funding formula, and it determines the amount of funding base funding you receive. But then also in the state of Texas, I'm sure you've heard about the PUF fund, which is additional dollars that are set for the UT system and the Texas A&M system. And then there are also, non-formula funding that those institutions receive, such as funding to support their research. That's one of the things we're asking for more funding for, because we know that we do state-of-the-art research that responds to national grand challenges with very little funding from the state. We have the elite classification of being an R2 institution. There are no HBCUs in the nation with the R1 classification. There are only 11 with the R2, and we are one of the elite 11. So if we are doing this well, producing great research, engaging our students in research, helping, which keeps them in school so that they matriculate and graduate. If we're doing that well with very little funds, imagine how well we could do if we had more funding in that area.
Well, Dr. Young, this has been an awesome conversation. I've enjoyed you having you on the podcast. I did want to just give you a couple minutes just to talk a little bit about TSU, some of your priorities for the next few years, any of your social media handles, programs, anything you got going on. I'll yield this time to you before we close out.
Well, let me thank you very much. I've enjoyed having this conversation with you, and we will have to talk again so we can discuss other things associated with wealth building. I have a number of ideas around entrepreneurship and wealth building and things that HBCUs can specifically do to serve as a catalyst for truly building wealth in the Black community. And when I think about Texas Southern University, I'm excited that we just created the first and only college of transdisciplinary studies in the state. What that means is we're going to serve individuals who have gone to college previously, taken some courses, they have good relevant work experience, but they didn't get a chance to finish their degree. We're going to let them transfer those courses in, regardless of how old they are, as long as they made good grades and they came from an accredited institution. We're going to let them transfer them in towards completing one of 12 degrees. They can select from 8 bachelor's degrees, 4 master's degrees, and they can complete, because that will allow them to increase their employability and increase their earnings by completing a degree. So that's one of our new programs I'm excited about. We just partnered with the city of Houston. I'm thankful to the mayor and the city councilman for supporting the creation of, once again, the first and only Center for Transformative Health. This center is going to go beyond looking at what's causing health disparities or what we need to do for health equity. It's going to go beyond that and say, what do we need to do to have healthy, strong communities in urban environments? So we're excited about that work. We're also preparing for our legislative request. And so we want advocates and individuals to speak up and say what the great things that Texas Southern is doing, so that our state legislators will recognize that and provide more support for us. This is the year where Texas is going to have a big surplus. And so we want to make sure that we get a chance to get those dollars back at our institution so that we can produce a good return on investment by graduating more students, doing groundbreaking research, and producing those programs that'll help the community as well. So that's what I'm excited about. That's what we're working on at Texas Southern University. I always remind everyone that we're the premier producer of diverse talent, and we are going to continue to make sure we do that and we transform the lives of our students and our community.
You touched on something that I was going to ask the question on. My question was, what can I as an individual do to support your HBCUs? And because you were talking about how the funds were allocated. So the question was, do we need to call our elected officials, and they're the ones that's making the votes and setting the budgets and things of that nature? So as an individual, would it be prudent for us to call our state representatives to tell them we want more funding for our HBCUs? Is that an accurate assessment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that would be awesome to advocate for it. And it isn't because we don't deserve it. I mean, we produced a great return on investment, and we serve the citizens of the state of Texas. And so, yes, it would be great to advocate and just talk about the good things. The fact that we are always supporting the Black Expo, the fact that we're graduating good students, the fact that we're doing things in the community with our community health and wellness initiatives. And so those are all the reasons to advocate for us getting more support. And then also you can advocate to our alums and say, let's start a campaign. Let's support our HBCUs.
Awesome.
It's not the amount of money, it's just the consistency.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Young. And thank you to everyone who tuned in to this episode of the Black Money Tree podcast. Make sure you mark your calendar. Texas Black Expo's 20-year celebration, May 18th to the 21st in Houston, Texas. Go to TexasBlackExpo.com. Get more information. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and make sure you follow the Black Money Tree on Instagram as well. Get a copy of the book. And until next time, thank you for joining us on another episode of the Black Money Tree podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Black Money Tree podcast. don't forget to like and share this video. And if you want more content like this, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll see you next time.